hours. We're projected to adjourn on May the 7th. 60 legislative days. A legislative day is not necessarily a calendar day because we have recesses. We have our mandatory 5-day recess, so Angus and I will come back. I think that's late February. Sort of supposed to be midway during the session to come back and give people a report. But anytime during the session, you're welcome to communicate with us. Email is the easiest at our Capitol address.
It's not working.
So please feel free to take some of the information that's back there. It gives you addresses, email addresses, and key dates, as well as
how a bill becomes law, so you kind of get the skinny on the process. And there's also an RSS feed on the website, which is great. For instance, like your guys' electric bike bill, for instance, you can RSS feed the bill, so when it gets posted for a hearing or action, you'll get a notification of it, which is good. So that with everything going around, you'll get a notice, say the bill is being heard by transportation. We have to post 48 to 72 hours notice. Our committee tries to do 96 hours. It's our own internal rules, so we can give as much notice to the public, especially the neighbor islands, as possible to testify, see the measure. So like, for instance, when your bill gets a hearing in transportation, if you RSS feed it, you'll get a notification it's been scheduled for hearing, and that gives you a chance to submit testimony. And then like Senator Baker said, when the testimony will be posted online through PDFs, and you can see what other groups and entities, the administration are saying. For your case, an example, you can see what Department of Transportation, why were they opposed, or what were their concerns? Can we address it, or is it something that they're not fully aware of? It needs to be federal law. So that's kind of what's great about it, is you can see what other people, and you can engage those stakeholders. A lot of times it's just a matter of discussion, and things can kind of be according to, or perceptions can kind of be reconciled. So
that bill will be...
This bill doesn't have a number yet because we haven't started the session, so it hasn't been, there's no number. Once the bills get introduced and filed, they'll have numbers. But their bill is to basically conform state law to federal law for electric bicycles, so they can be used on the highways, not have issues that they've had before. So. And making it clear that they're not motorcycles a little bit, which seems to be
the issue.
The issue here.
So, Angus, in regards to your diagrams here, where is this RS?
No, it's on the website.
It's on the website.
It's not on there. It's on the website. You'll see it on the website when you go there. But I pump that tool all the time. It's really handy because you're busy and everything. I mean, the thing, even though you're tracking stuff, what's the worst is you're tracking, you're busy, and then all of a sudden, transportation committee was scheduled for a hearing, and then you're like, oh my God, I missed the hearing. I didn't get testimony.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's.
And if we know that people are interested, we try to, particularly if it's your bill, we try to let people know. But our staff gets overwhelmed too. So the business with the RSS feed is you need to set up an account. You need an account with the website because that's how they can communicate with you.
But it makes it easy to submit testimony. Once you set the account up, then it's one click to submit testimony.
And that's the Capitol.
Yes. Capital PITOL.hawaii.gov. I'll take you right to the main page. And there's also archives, so you can see bills that did or did not make it for past sessions. It also shows the governor's acts on there, things that became law, as well as governor's messages and things that come down from the governor for action from us. All gets posted on the website.
And any of the reports that come down from the departments or the committees are on there as well. The one thing that, we have a new administration, so a lot of new department heads, a lot of new people engaged and involved. Well, one of the things that the Senate has as a unique responsibility is we confirm the governor's appointments. So boards and commissions, Board of Regent, PUC, departments like the DCCA, Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs, Agriculture, Business, Economic Development and Tourism, Health, Human Services, you name it. The department heads and some other key officials sometimes have to come down for confirmation. Judges, the Senate confirms judges as well, so that's one of the things that makes the Senate a little bit different from the House. Otherwise, we follow the same procedure.
We review the first day of the confirmation.
Yeah, the budget bill always is a House bill. It starts in the House first and comes over over to the Senate. And for a lot of things, the key time after things have gone through the process, it's a conference at the end of session that works out the differences between the House and the Senate versions of the bill, works out the differences between the House draft and the Senate draft of the budget.
There's money to create a footprint in the budget for the expenditures.
The other thing that happens, some of our nonprofits will be submitting grant and aid requests. There's a form on the website that they have to fill out. The budget's going to be tight again this year. I don't know how many grant and aid requests we'll be able to provide, but one of the, in previous years, we provided some funding to Lahaina Luna High School Foundation to help finish out the stadium and the bleachers and the activities, because that was something that was being done outside the Department of Education. We typically provide grant and aid funds to MEO. We did to MEDB to expand their Women in Tech and Energy curriculum to schools statewide, because it's received such wonderful reviews. But those are some of the types of organizations. It can only be a nonprofit. We don't fund profit organizations at all. But we try to do mainly in the health and human service area.
Yeah. But I mean, we are slightly optimistic that the council and revenue will upgrade in the last forecast, 4.5%. But I mean, I'm a little bit more optimistic given the economic indicators right now. But I think the general consensus is we are in the middle of an economic cycle. We are going to bottom out again, and so just trying to invest in these things, especially in the economic front, which will allow us to, when that cycle starts to occur, to be better bolstered, especially in diversification of economic activity. So.
The other thing is, that's maybe a little unique to Hawaii, maybe other states haven't. We need to follow what the Council on Revenues gives us in terms of projections, but we also do a 6-year budget plan. So the years 1 and 2 may look really rosy, but 5 and 6, that's when maybe a lot of bonds are coming due and we have to pay for the things that we floated years past. And sometimes that's what people get a little nervous about, wanting to make sure that anything we do, it rolls over to the next year and it has an impact. We don't do very many one-time expenditures in the state budget. There are a few, but most everything, whether it's collective bargaining and it's salaries and benefits. The other thing that we're doing this year that's going to take a bite out of our revenues is, I guess it was 4 years ago, we set on a path to provide some fiscal stability in our OPEB, our other benefit expenses, the health fund for all the state and county workers, as well as the retirement system. The retirement system had been investing its funds, and we had stopped taking excess of 8% to the general fund. So, and they've been doing really well. We weren't investing for our health fund, and so it was, we were just creating huge liabilities. As a lot of our workforce gets older, we don't have a lot of young people coming in, and not a lot of young people to pay the bills. So we had to establish a policy that beginning this fiscal year, we're going to be putting in, I think it's $100 million into the EUTF to try to pay down those unfunded liability. Under the new federal rules that kick in this year, we have to show our unfunded liability on our CAFR, our Consolidated Accounting Report, fund report. And so it means that, all of the states are in the same boat. It's not just Hawaii. But I think we're on a better track than some states because we've actually made the commitment. I know the county of Maui has been putting aside some resources to pay for their piece of it, because the stick with the bill was it comes off the top, and for the counties it comes off of, if they don't put in their share to these funds, then it comes off of their transient accommodations allocation. that's the big stick for both of us, for both the state and the county. And I see no indication from any of our colleagues that we would be tempted to.
No, because this protects our bond rating and overall economic picture, which allows us to finance important projects.
Is there any consideration of legalization of marijuana for coverage?
We will have all kinds of bills.
There's all sorts of bills. There's going to be one introduced to basically put it under the alcohol regime like Colorado did, legalization tax. There's another one to take the medical marijuana task force report and put that into legislation. And there's also
dispensaries,
yeah, which is being reviewed and worked on right now internally by the health chair, who has had some conversation with some entities that didn't put their hat in the ring, so to speak, to provide a way to create a safe supply for patients. And then the feds actually like a lot better than some of the other proposals that come out. And then the decriminalization one is a priority of the House to push that this year too. So
What I was wondering about was the funding, whether the legalization of this crop would provide funding for the shortfall that we're finding in other areas.
yeah, there was the tax department did a rough study a few years ago under the former director that showed that the GET take from legalization of marijuana would be huge. A lot of money, exactly. But there's all sorts of, I think at this point though, the legislature, although everything will be on the table, is really focusing on implementing the recommendations of the dispensary task force and deprinting it, which would be huge. Because you're right, it's ridiculous. It's being used to put people back in jail for more serious crimes, which they've already served their time for, and our jails are already well overcrowded. Maui one is close to being, I think, condemned by Amnesty International. It's so bad. I mean, and these are the kinds of things that are actually, happening, where resources are going towards not being able to help people. And so that's kind of the new focus. I mean, that was the focus of the previous administration. That's the focus of this administration. But I think that's why on the House side, in particular, Speaker Joe Suki wants to see the Deeprin bill pass this year and wants to get the dispensary issue on the books and get a system so patients don't have supply issues like before. As well as confidentiality. The ruling from Justice that came out is Congress just passed. It's going to be huge in helping the state go forward on this. Because we're not surrounded by other states.
Right.
Which is kind of nice.
The issue of that the stakeholder group, I was part of the dispensary task force, is working with law enforcement because it's still a Schedule I controlled substance, and so we're trying to figure out how we can, for instance, the task force recommendation is that there be at least one for every, I think it's 500 patients, but that there be at least one in every county. So that would mean for us, Maui County, it would probably be in central Maui someplace, but then we would need to supply folks that have medical marijuana cards if they live on welfare or not. So we're trying to figure out how we can work with TSA so that, if it's in a plane, they've got their card, it doesn't get confiscated. And apparently what happens now is we had the medical marijuana program in public safety. We have moved it to the Department of Health. So instead of calling law enforcement when TSA has issues, they call the Department of Health. And they've been pretty good about, as long as there's a valid card on the traveler and it's not an excessive amount, they turn the other way. Because they don't know what to do with it if they took it anyway, because it's legal for somebody with a medical marijuana card to have it. So it's a little dicey. We're trying to navigate all those oddities.
The federal rules, are going to make it clear. TSA now can allow people to pass with a travel card. That was the big issue. Part of that ruling that came down said that states, though, who do legalize it and have programs are responsible for the law enforcement security to other neighboring states, which is why us being in the middle of the ocean is but that's a big issue, obviously, if all the planes are under federal TSA, getting people back and forth. And, there's the idea of the ferries and everything else. But On the House side, the health chair's been talking to some of the farmers who are in a position to be able to grow for the state in each island, so we wouldn't have a transportation issue of supply to the dispensaries. Those are the things that are being worked out through the legislative process, and again, that's where you guys coming in is huge. You know, what's the real world? What is the actual situation? What are things that we need to know about before it becomes law that will make the program effective and get people the treatment they need, or possibly create some kind of a boom?
So, you know, there would be lots of rules and regulations for the growers, they're calling them growing centers, for the dispensaries, both from a health and safety issue, but also from wanting to make sure that the people that are engaged in this business are going to be heavy-duty license fees, annual registration, inspections, and that sort of thing. So the other thing that some of us had concerns about had to do with making sure that the medicine was in opaque, child-proof containers, so that, you know, we know that some young patients will benefit from this, but we don't want it to be an inducement or enticement for people who are really not ill. So we're looking at all of those kinds of things, but LRB is drafting the report for the task force based on the recommendations that we provided maybe a week ago. So it took us a little longer to gain some kind of consensus, and we actually voted on the various provisions. And if they didn't have a majority, then they were not included in the task force. So the task force report really represents consensus of stakeholders. There was law enforcement, there was attorney general, there was transportation, there was narcotics, there were Drug-Free Hawaii, there were advocacy groups for use of medical marijuana, and the Drug Coalition. There are all kinds of people engaged and involved, so it was a pretty good representative sample of the community, and it will be on our website when it comes out, so people will have an opportunity to read it and make some recommendations. And they are, LRB is drafting the bill for the legislature, so it will go in both the House and the Senate.
And that's the Legislative Reference Bureau.
Sorry.
It's not that
Sorry.
hard.
Yeah, Legislative
I have
Reference Bureau.
something.
That's
This is
it.
on this particular issue, how much emphasis or studies been put towards the long-term effect of youth being impaired permanently by the fact that the white matter is affected by THC and
Most of the medical marijuana has very low THC. Very low THC. They look, the medicinal qualities are in the other cannabinoids that are in the plant. But yes, we've had medical marijuana law on our books for a very long time.
has been proven to lower IQs.
They don't. The benefits apparently from all of the indicators that I've seen far outweigh any of the detriments when it's used medicinally.
Right. That's a special category.
Yeah, that's all the dispensary program is talking about.
Right.
Is-
I'm talking
is-
about heavily THC, strong THC.
I'm gonna go to Colorado.
Yeah, check them out.
Yes.
Yes, I have a big concern, and I'm ready to talk about it if you want to change the subject. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay. I did bring a poster to go along with my red dress today because this is very important to me. After the West Maui Civic Center meeting, PBS was on, Insights, and they were having a debate about tightening or loosening our gun laws and the future gun laws in Hawaii. And they had a gun representative there named Bill Richter, who said that the Republican Senator Mike Gabbard would be bringing a bill before the Senate to have the carry concealed weapon law in our state. They pushed for it back in Cincinnati where I live, and they lost because we worked very hard to not have it. But after Vonovich left, then it did get passed. But it's a dangerous law. As you all know, the 2-year-old shot her mother because she was carrying a concealed weapon loaded in her purse, or somehow the child, the 2-year-old, managed to get it out and shoot and kill her mother. Concealed weapons can be in libraries, drugstores, post offices. They can walk around with concealed weapons. I feel so safe that we don't have anything like that in Hawaii. And to me, if anybody wants to call Senator Mike Gabbard, I have his phone number here. Maybe it won't even leave his office to become a bill. I was going to ask you how one person, one individual like him could possibly bring it, but I guess you've just explained all that, you know, goes
Well,
through
only,
committee and all this.
only legislators can introduce bills.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, we get all kinds of requests.
But not the senator. Gabbard can't bring the bill.
Gabbard is a senator.
Right.
He can introduce the bill.
Right.
It would then get referred to committee, and in this instance, I believe it would go to the
Public
Senate.
safety comment.
Yeah, public safety, and then to judiciary and labor. So it would have to go, pass through 2 hearings, and then it would go to the floor, and then it would have to pass on the floor, and then it would have to go to the House, and then it would go through the same process, and then it would have to come out of conference, and then it would have to be signed by the governor. So it's a very long process.
Good.
There are
Well, I
many
thought-
ways to kill a bill than there are to pass them.
Well, rather than waste that time, I thought if everybody called Gabbard and told him we don't even want the bill to get it started, and we think it's extremely, doesn't go with our culture here in Hawaii or anything, and as many people that want to call, maybe he'd get tired of the phone calls and not even bother being influenced by the NRA. Also, Bill Richter, this guy that basically represented the NRA, but he didn't say that. He talked about automatic weapons, and so did the mayor, Cardwell, and that it is illegal to have semi-automatic or automatic weapons in our state as residents. But guess what? People from other states can come here with an assault weapon and be staying right next to Walgreens at the condos there, and then take it to Big Island and shoot animals with an assault weapon. When I heard about this, and the whole story is true, I can give you every single name. This guy came from Denver, brought an assault weapon, and he had all these permits that he could do this. So I think there should be a bill that you can't bring an assault weapon no matter who you are into this state. I mean, he was not a policeman. He was a regular guy that wanted to go hunting for, you know, the deer over there in Big Island. And I think that's crazy to me, absolutely crazy. And he did bring it, and it was frightening to me that the poor girl that had the condo, that her girlfriend had this guy come down, that she was too scared to even say anything. And shouldn't there be some law that you can't, no matter how many permits you get from other states, come into our state and bring a semi-assault weapon? You know, they always get into the debate about what these guns are called. But if he, well, I also suggest that basically everybody gets concerned about this, because they are going to be pushing hard for the next year to try to loosen our gun laws, and you know, they don't want registered guns and all these other things, and they're going to try to do what they've done in Texas and a couple of these other southern states. And he was very serious, but luckily the people that were debating him were excellent, and some of the facts were wrong. They like to change the facts and about the number of gun things that happen here versus other places and stuff. And I hope that everybody realizes, and this is what's fun. This is why everybody's funding the NRA. This is the building in Fairfax, Virginia. If you look at this building, a car is teeny little size. They can do 2 semis underneath, and you can practice with your assault weapon in that building. And this building has to be supplied with money, and the way they get the money is by all their memberships. And that's how they get. This was very close to where my house was, maybe about 5 miles away before I left Washington, D.C. There's lots of reasons that I think that we should definitely call Gabbard and ask him why in the world would he ever even think of doing that. So, thank you.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Hawaii 5-0 blasts away every Friday, guns ablazing,
Yeah.
with
Terrible.
some department. Does that exist? Hawaii 5-0?
No.
It's totally fictional. Totally fictional. There should be like a disclaimer from the state about
Terrible.
guns here. then we really don't welcome them here.
Well, we have pretty strict gun laws
Yeah.
already.
We do.
We do.
And I do not see any traction in this state for right to carry concealed. I mean, there's going to be some issues to make sure that it's clear that we can restrict that, because my understanding is there's been some federal, I don't know, there was a court case or something that looked like it had some implications for some of our gun laws. And I remember when we were working on issues of domestic violence and how to tighten up those laws, that issue came up. So as part of the Women's Caucus who's working on domestic violence issues, we're looking at that to make sure that there's no loophole. Because we've had people killed as a result of domestic disputes from partner violence.
I don't see our judiciary chairing the hearing.
Not either.
Well, that makes me
Ours-
feel.
And
ours
yours
either.
either, so-
Yeah.
My husband and I called in 2 or 3 times, and I figured everybody else was almost asleep by that time because everybody had a long day.
You know, a lot of times if the legislator gets a request from a constituent and they don't agree with it, they'll put it in anyway, but they'll put it in by request.
B/R. You'll see that after people's signatures.
Yeah. The other thing you'll notice, the Senate President and the House Speaker put in the packages. They put in the administrative package. Remember, I said only legislators can introduce bills. So all of Governor Ige's bills, law enforcement package, the women's package, we put our own in, but because we're all legislators. So they'll be all by request. So if you see something like that and it's an administrative bill, that's why. Because the administration cannot introduce them because they send it through the speakers.
Okay, so that's a perfect segue to my question. Which packages will you specifically, both of you, be supporting in this upcoming session, and how are they going to benefit South and West Maui?
For me personally, it depends on the bill. I'm going to
Yeah.
read the bill and look at the bill and see how it negatively or positively impacts the community.
So has anything been presented thus far that jumps out at you?
Nothing's been presented yet.
Nothing's
Not
been
yet?
presented because we don't pre-file in the beginning of a biennium, and so nothing's been introduced yet.
Okay, so what about meetings? I know a lot of meetings go on before a session where, you know, people come in to discuss bills that they're planning on presenting to you guys for introduction. Have any groups or anything presented anything that really sparks your
Maui
interest?
species has had some support for a pilot project there as well. I think it was a great idea,
Yes.
composting invasives. That's excellent. Been meeting with some of the Honolulu Bay, the different stakeholders to look at the next stage, which is planning monies and management monies to keep the place open and safe, so we don't have to worry about that. Uber Lyft, which I was going to talk about
Oh.
here a little bit. They come rolling on in, no pun intended. You know, to talk about how with the certain and the concerns, obviously, from some of the other people about what's
The
happening.
taxis, yes.
Well, no, actually, funny, yeah, but there's also been the insurance commissioners come in and pointed out that the umbrella policy Uber uses is illegal
Yes.
because you're not driving with any insurance at all. So, Puna, the people up there with lava, have come and have asked for support to look at, to ensure that their insurance isn't rescinded because of the lava. We do have something on the books for lava zones 1 and 2. We're hoping to bring that back up as a much more better alternative to make sure people in that area get insurance. Because the mandate that was proposed by the senator from the area will drive insurers out of the region, and people won't get any insurance for their homes at all in businesses. So we think the HPIA, which is 43123, I believe, off the top of my head, that is a mechanism. 42131, sorry. All these numbers jump around. But anyway, that would give them the ability to get insurance. But obviously what we're trying to, you don't want people, there's some people who are using the tragedy to try to up their coverage or to buy land on the cheap because the people are having to sell out and then get it insured automatically, which of course is going to get wiped out by lava. So that's, the rest of us have to pick up the risk on all of that. So that's some of the groups that have been coming in and talking story with us, mostly Maui ones really, and then of course meeting with the West Maui Hospital people about what their next stage is going to be, how they plan to use the special purpose revenue bonds, what type of things they're doing. These guys here with their bikeway trails, trying to get state law for electric bikes to conform to federal so we don't have these issues and not being able to create walkable, bikeable communities to interconnect. That's pretty much in the meetings like this. And then people stopping in the store going, hey, You know, you should do it, Bill.
Well, one of the biggest issues that we have before us, and in a lot of ways, you know, I have some personal priorities, but this is going to be my top legislative priority, is making sure that we get a reasonable, workable fix for Maui Memorial Medical Center to make sure that they continue to provide high quality care. And that, you know, to me, we've talked about it, we've had different groups work on it in the past couple of years, and it's time to act. I've asked Governor Ige to consider sending us an emergency appropriation. Anytime, the legislature cannot initiate emergency appropriations in the current fiscal year. That can only come from the governor, because you're spending into a year that you've already passed the budget for. But I believe he is favorably inclined, because that's going to make a huge difference for the stability. Maui Memorial probably has enough reserves to take it through another year. The rest of the system does not. Maui has helped the other parts of the system because we are trying to be a system, but we've got to make sure that we've got an ability to go forward, and that's going to take a lot of effort, and yeah, it directly affects West Maui. It affects all of Maui. So, you know, meeting with those folks, meeting with, you know, a lot of times you've got to talk story with your own colleagues to make sure that they understand why these issues are important for us. You know, whether it's, you know, the safety program for the ocean. You know, Angus and I are working with the county to see how we might be able to help move that program forward, following on something that was started on Kauai several years ago. It's been very, very successful to stop drownings. But those, you know, working with those kinds of folks, I mean, we, you know, I get visited by MEO and, you know, all of the folks that are interested in Cameron Center, all of those guys, as well as individuals who, you know, are wanting to up their professional status, either with continuing education. So I'm working with nurses, working with the vet techs to try to make sure that they get certified. And we get all kinds of meetings with different people. Anybody from Maui, I always see them first, and sometimes have to foist off some of the other meetings to staff because there's just so many hours in a day, and we're still holding hearings. We're doing info briefings. You know, we're trying to follow up to make sure that the PUC, as a for instance, which we moved from BNF over to DCCA, that transition gets finished and worked out. So there's a whole variety of issues. There's never just one issue.
Well, I should be with people down in the coffee shop, right? So you'll find me on coming up with sessions. Yes. Oh, sorry. Louise had jumped up.
Go ahead.
I have just a few questions. So, you know, the